See, I think Dave Meltzer is pissed because they didn't tell him who was threatening the legal action. And I think, well, he's not used, especially in AEW. I don't think he's used to them not telling him everything. So he's been an outspoken proponent and a supporter of AEW since day one. Mm-hmm. And they have rumors floating around that he's on the payroll. He's almost like an inside paid advisor influencer, to use that word. And so, but now, since they didn't let him know that, I think he's pissed off about that. And I think he's mad at them because now I hear that he's bad-mouthing them a little bit, correct?
So Meltzer sort of cuts a promo on Tony Khan. It's by far the most withering criticism Meltzer has ever made on AEW or Tony Khan. And it is involving Khan's and AEW's reluctance to give out any information at all about their own company. I'm going to give you some examples, including injury or sickness information on wrestlers, so who knows if they're going to turn up or not, various backstage issues or fights everyone else is reporting on, not explaining on camera or off camera why 4 of AEW's top stars all had the belt stripped from them and are no longer on TV. But I'm going to give you the quotes themselves from Meltzer. Meltzer quotes, anything that anyone has heard about Punk press conference and fallout has come from me or Brian Alvarez or Sean Sapp or another reporter, nothing from AEW. And it is like so bad to not even say anything. I cannot think of any other form of entertainment or sports or even a pro wrestling company other than the sleaziest companies there are. And I'm not calling AEW a sleazy company, but in the past...
Kinda.
Yeah, you sort of kind of are. But in the past, you've had sleazy companies run away from stories. Now, Meltzer also goes on to negatively compare AEW in this regard to any independent federation, WWE, and especially New Japan. Quote, if someone gets a cold in New Japan, they tell you, and they tell you a new lineup that very day. Further on in the clip, Meltzer says the justification is that this is the con man world of pro wrestling, and it's the carny world, so they should be able to do it, you know? Card subject to change. I mean, that's ridiculous treating your fans like that. And that's one of the things AEW had in the beginning. It's the idea that there were not garbage pro wrestling and that they treated their fans with respect. I just think AEW should live up to the standard of at least second-level pro wrestling, okay? Pretty stinging comments, I think, from former AEW fan Dave Meltzer in that respect.
Well, go back to what I said. He's pissed off because they're not telling him either. See, you cannot tell the fans, but guess what? Oh, Dave is there to fill in the blanks. But now he can't fill in the blanks because they're leaving him clueless. And Alvarez and that other Sean Sapp or whatever his name is. See, nobody's reported who's hurt or whatever in this. You're just trying to, I mean, Meltzer said some things, but it hasn't been confirmed through Tony Khan, and that's who he's buddying up to. And he can do what he wants to do, but now the chickens come home to roost, as they say. And now he finds himself in the position of a regular fan just guessing at what's going on backstage. Whereas before, he could just call Tony or talk to Tony, and Tony would fill him in. Then, of course, hell, that gives him half his paper. He goes, this guy's hurt, and this guy's hurt, and blah, blah, blah. But they're not telling him anything. And I think in Dave's mind, somebody has gotten to Tony and says, quit cozying up to Dave Meltzer and those guys, because if they want to, as this demonstrates, if they want to, they can cause you a lot of problems. Now, we have been talking about the lawsuit. I think Ace Steel is going to come with one. And then I think follow closely. Or they could even team up, because CM Punk, he teamed up with, what was his name? The other guy that he financed the lawsuit on. I can't even remember his name now.
Oh, Colt Cabana.
Colt Cabana. He is no stranger to a lawyer's offices.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think he's going to sue, whether we hear about it or not. And that's what Dave Meltzer would like to know, because that's big news. That is big, big news. And he's afraid with this new shut him out policy, seems like to me, this whole thing could come and go without him even knowing about it. Because I'm sure if it happens, they're going to sign the NDAs, whatever, for whatever good they are. They didn't do Vince any good, but they're going to sign non-disclosure agreements, and he may never hear about it. So Dave may have worked himself into a hole that he can't get out of. That remains to be seen. I don't think he's completely out of AEW, but that's his business, reporting on wrestling organizations. So he's still going to report on them. He's just a little mad right now.
If we sort of like leave Dave Meltzer out of this and just go on Tony Khan's new policy over the last 6 months of completely shutting out all media, I mean, what do you as a booker think of that? Because it pushes away the fans a bit, and also there's a practical problem. Is that you never know. I mean, no storyline reason was ever given for Punk and Omega and the Young Bucks for not turning up anymore. So that's a great big creative hole. And
why would you even seriously? I think it's a big ado about nothing. Thanks to Dave Meltzer and Alvarez and everybody else, everybody in the world is smart to how the business works. And everybody that's a big wrestling fan will read something about wrestling and about the big fight and know that they got sent away. Whether they tell them or not on TV, that's another story. I think that's maybe why he's complaining too, because the one fan that's sitting back in Chicken Ridge, West Virginia, he only has an antenna on top of his house and doesn't have internet. He's probably the only one in the world who doesn't know about the fight in the AEW dressing room, because Dave, it was big news for him for 2 or 3 weeks, and Alvarez, big news, and PW Insider, big news. But now they're shutting them down. And I do think sometimes they have really opened the dressing room up too much to these inside guys. Now, the NFL, they get to come into the dressing room after the game. They can talk to whoever they want to, blah, blah, blah. This is a little bit different because I don't think the guys, they don't really know what to say, and they're green. They're green to guys getting news.
Tony Khan is, or was probably, Wrestling Observer's Booker of the Year. And then he left.
Well, imagine that.
And all of a sudden, he's got possibly the most interesting thing he possibly could have is Punk and Kenny Omega and blah, blah, blah. All this real-life animosity that you could really play off on television. And when I interviewed Val Venus last week and a few weekends before, he said that's the difference between Tony Khan and Vince McMahon, because when Vince McMahon had the WWF World Wildlife Fund people knocking on his door, he loses the legal battle, he has to change his name to WWE. He could have knocked him for 6, or what he did was do the Get the F Out t-shirts and sold a load of t-shirts and made a negative into a positive, and that's the difference between McMahon back then at least and Tony Khan now.
Well, Get the F Out was a great marketing gimmick, but they let the fans know what that t-shirt meant. Because the World Wildlife Foundation, they didn't want to be associated with wrestling, and it was like low rent, and what they were doing was so much more humane and moral than anything the WWE or the old WWF could have done. So when they got that news out, and through Meltzer and through Alvarez and through whoever was doing it, PW Insider or whatever, but through the mainstream media more, through the Times and New York Post and all the big newspapers, that's how they got the marketing behind Get the F Out. And I don't know who come up with that, but some marketing guy, I'm sure, he just thought about it and said, wow, that's a great idea. Get the F Out. And that was good. That was great. I would have even bought one had I knew they had it on sale. I knew they had it on sale, but I just don't buy stuff like that.
No.